Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Ground Up, real-time issues and real-time solutions for MWBEs. This is brought to you by Queen Strategy Partners, Nicole Valentine, Esquire, Danielle Douglas, and myself, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. We're living examples of what collaboration can do when you work together and you pool the collective resources and brilliance that's available in this market. And we decided that during this time, we wanted to serve you. We wanted to make sure that you understood what was necessary to survive COVID-19 and thrive post what we are experiencing in the world. So we want to thank you for showing up each and every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, to be a part of this experience as we bring the best of the best to you with tactical information that you can use immediately in being able to make sure that your business is thriving and serving your constituents. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce my partner, my sister, none other than Danielle Douglas, who will tell you a little bit more about our show today.
So, Miss Stacey, I always say thank you so much for the warm welcome. And, I'm sending love right back at you. You know how much I love you. And I just want to say to all that's on the call with us this morning, you are in for a treat. I know I say that every week because I truly believe it every week. I feel like the information that is being provided is really helping you with real-time solutions for real-time issues. We know that some of you may have taken advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program, the loan, right? And this is not just for those business owners that did take advantage of the loan. The topic is how to find and manage employees during COVID-19. But it's really, really pertinent for those of you who did, because as you know, was really about you hiring folks, either maintaining the employees that you had on board or bringing them back or hiring new employees to help you in your business. And now for some of you, you may be at that stage that you are in the forgiveness stage of the PPP loan, and you really have to document that you were able to sustain at least 60%, use the funds for 60% workforce. So without further ado, we again have two great guests that is really going to talk to you today about how to find and manage employees during COVID-19. Again, this is critically important, not just for those of you who took advantage of the PPP loan, but just in general, because we know that our team is critical in order for us to deliver our products and services to our customers. Without a good team, hey, we can't really produce or again deliver our goods and services to our customers. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our first guest, LaTanya Pouncey. She is president and owner of the Pouncey Group, which comprises of a franchise brand, At Work Personnel in New York City. At Work Personnel is an award-winning staffing recruiting firm that places talented professionals into management, executive, technical, and administrative roles at some of the world's largest and most recognizable companies. LaTanya is responsible for the strategic decision and leading all operations, people, sales, and brand awareness across the firm. And LaTanya has a successful track record of managing large and complex corporate benefits programs and strategic diversity initiatives for a global workforce. So, in addition to that, she was previously the corporate manager and head of diversity and inclusion at the former L3 Technologies in New York City. So, without further ado, I introduce you to LaTanya Pouncey. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? LaTanya?
You did.
Sure. We talked about your first name, but then I was like, what, did I butcher her last name? I didn't hear that. So I'm going to turn it over to my illustrious co-host, Miss Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. You see how I called you Miss and Dr. Stacey? You know, you're deserving of a double title. And Miss Stacey is going to introduce our second guest.
Yes, we have an exciting show today. I'm so excited to have both LaTanya and Marvel Ajala Hall. She has demonstrated a track record of success with quarter century years plus, 25 in the global business experience, but she's only 22, so I don't understand how that works. But anyway, her passion, strong work ethic, and entrepreneurial attributes led her to found her company, M. Jala Hall Group LLC. It's a hands-on, independent global consulting practice providing thought leadership to solve problems and organizational challenges. She's certified women minority owned business. And prior to that, she was the executive vice president of human resources and operations at Informa, a leading international events, intelligent, and scholarly research entity headquartered in London in the United Kingdom. And while maintaining this full schedule, she believes in giving back. And she served as MC for the nonprofit For Kidney's Sake, an annual gala and keynote speaker for the Pink and Pearls brunch for the past 3 years. She's the head of women's ministry at her church, Calvary, here in New York. She's the former president of Jack and Jill of America, Queens chapter, my chapter. And she has done outstanding work in all sorts of nonprofit and community service. But her leadership is what so many people recognize her for. She's been named in Long Island Business News as one of Long Island's top 50 most influential women in business. She was honored by the Nassau County African American Museum's top 30 honored role models in the community. And I can go on and on, but she is passionate not only about leadership, but really understanding how to source talent and be able to help a team really maximize their output. So for every business that's here today, you have the winning combination with Latanya and Marvel Ajala Hall, because they know what it takes to not only succeed in times like this, but post COVID-19, when you're rebuilding, restructuring, and reorganizing your success pattern. These are the ladies to know. So welcome, Marvel Ajala Hall. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Stacey, I have to say, I like that. Hashtag reorganizing your success pattern.
Hey, that was the Holy Spirit gave me that one.
I have to say amen to that. I like that. I need to write that down for myself.
Absolutely. So we're going to have fun as always. We thank you for those who are in the chat already. Good morning. Thank you for joining in. Make sure you share this broadcast with other businesses who you know need this kind of content and information. What you focus on expands. If we stay focused on watching the news all day, that kind of energy will mess you up. So from the ground up, this is the place for you to get it all reorganized and structured so that you can take the action steps necessary to succeed. So Danielle's going to jump right into it so we can start talking about what you can do in real time when it comes to managing your employees.
Yes.
And building a team.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so this first question is for both of you. And when Stacey and I thought about this, it was really in the context of for business owners that either, again, had to or did utilize a PPP loan. But when things first happened, you know, and people and business owners that had to shut down and they had to lay off folks or furlough folks, it is, you know, how should business owners now source new talent as they reopen their business and begin to have a little sense of normalcy? What does that look like now? And Latanya, if you could start us off, that would be appreciated.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you again to Dr. Stacey and you, Danielle, for having me. You know, as you mentioned, now is the time where owners are bringing back employees and they're looking to account, you know, for that payroll spend. But the other challenge that they're facing is that the government spend that ended July 31st, the additional $600 payment. You know, that has been a challenge for employers because many people were making more on unemployment than they were in their jobs. So when they were asked to come back, a lot of them were saying no. And that's also a big challenge now with the next stimulus package. You know, whether we continue to extend the $600 payment, whether it be $400 or somewhere in between. But nonetheless, it's important that business owners sell their employees on the culture and the role that, you know, that they're recruiting for. So it's important that they continue to recruit as they always have been, but expand, you know, always make sure that you're expanding your recruiting options. You know, continue to go to schools, depending on your industry. look at associations, think outside the box. Many people use staffing and recruiting firms like myself because we have larger recruiting pools, if you will. And during times like this, many times people they will slow down, and they have slowed down in hiring, and they put freezes in place. They've laid off both permanent as well as maybe temporary employees. And so when they're thinking about bringing back employees, many times it will bring them back on a temporary or contract basis. Um, and so they'll work with, with a staffing or recruiting firm like At Work Personnel. So this way, they're not responsible for payroll and benefits. A staffing and recruiting firm assumes all of that risk, and they assume the employer of record, and they're responsible for paying all of the payroll benefits. But it's important that business owners really think about, and if they haven't, take the time to assess their culture. Why should someone come back to work for you? Why should new talent come to work for you? What are your benefits? What are you offering? And, during this time where they're kind of like in between, if they want to come back or if they're going to be making more, explain to them the opportunities that they're going to have down the road on the long term, because the $600 payment is not going to last forever. Sell them on the career opportunity, the career development, and that this opportunity is available now, not later. And so just be creative and think outside the box.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I know you have a lot to say when it comes to creating culture, Marvela. So would love to get your thoughts on that same question, because a lot of people are trying to figure this out.
Sure. Well, my colleague, LaTanya, if you don't mind me calling you my colleague, I totally agree as it relates to culture and as it relates to why should I come to work there. I think it's very important for small business owners and corporations and mid-sized companies to all know that at this point, employees are in the driver's seat. And so therefore, you're selling. What is your brand? What makes you important? Why should I come to work there? And if you're thinking about, just to add a little, if you're thinking about different various ways in where you can source talent, there are many things. Number one, I would say small business partnerships. And what I mean by that is many small businesses had to furlough or lay off employees. And so, if you talk to each other and you can prioritize and say, who are those great employees that you had, Dr. Stacy, or that you had, LaTanya, that you had, Danielle, in your company that you had to let go of. You didn't want to, but you had to. And perhaps we can talk and prioritize hiring some of those furloughed or laid off employees that were laid off from one small business with another. So small business partnership. Another thing you can think about in sourcing new talent are virtual job fairs. And what you can do there, you can have your virtual interviews. You can talk to the person, and again, to LaTanya's point, you don't have to hire them. It can be contract, sort of a temp to perm, or you can choose an outside agency. But let's take advantage of technology and all these things that are available to us at minimal costs. So you can do something also called a virtual tryout, where you can just try out. And it's more of a, people hate taking tests, but it's more of an assessment or simulation where you as the employer can put up situations and see how that person would react to it. It's a way to just add to the interview. And then that employee or potential employee can think about the job more and have a better understanding, he or she, of what that job might entail based on the situation. So virtual tryouts, virtual interviews, virtual career fairs, small business partnerships, one with the other. Those are some of the things that come to mind. And then there's this old thing called research that I know LaTanya remembers past, that you can go back to now, where you can hire someone for X number of hours and say, this is what I'm looking for. And it can be a defined number of hours based on your budget. And they can do all the digging and the research for you. So your time can, as an owner, can be used in a more valuable way somewhere else and come up with that short list that you can. So those are just a few ideas.
I had to build upon what you both just discussed. There's also a program, I think it's called Shared at Work with the Department of Labor. So LaTanya, when you talked about unemployment and incentivizing employees to come back because they were getting that $600 supplement in addition to their weekly benefits. Is that something that you would recommend that business owners try, that shared at work program through the Department of Labor as well?
That is definitely something that they could try. But at the end of the day, employers, really, it's about really understanding when you get employees through the door, how are you going to retain them?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, you can do a number of things. But at the end of the day, if your culture is not set up for employees to succeed, then they're going to leave.
Right.
It's important for employers to really understand, and particularly small businesses. And small businesses need to know that you can compete with big businesses. Okay, you can compete with big businesses. It's a matter of how you set up your culture, and the leader defines the culture. And you define the culture when you set the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Set the expectation about the types of people you want to come into your organization, and that means you have to put in processes and systems. So, to Margot's point, you have to do diverse things. That means using technology, automated systems and tools, and thinking outside of the box. Many things are virtual, but many things were virtual before COVID, particularly in the HR space. It's just that some employers versus others may not have used them. It doesn't mean that it didn't exist. So many employers partner with the Department of Labor already, in addition to other tools like the virtual tools, the virtual career fairs. And right now, we're getting ready to go into the recruiting season. So many employers are already prepping for the recruiting season. You have many college campuses who are setting up virtual career fairs in addition to employers. So if you're a small business employer, medium-sized business employer, you need to be taking advantage of these tools and these opportunities, because the talent is now out there, because they have been laid off. So it's important that, like Margot said, reach out to your counterparts. And like I always say, to your frenemies, your competition, reach out to your frenemies. Even though you are competing with someone, many people will take the time to share the knowledge, expertise, and certainly their employers.
Right.
So, utilizing the Department of Labor, again, is a wonderful resource. But again, you have to continue to identify all of the resources that are available. And you have to do that by asking questions, doing research, partnering with others to get that information, so you can really, get that talent. Because the talent is out there. You have to be strategic about how you go after it.
So I want to jump in before we get into the additional questions that we have for you, because two things I heard in my ears went, we need to zero back down on what Marvel has shared before around assessments, because some of the small businesses that are watching and that are growing their businesses might not have a team of 10 or a team of 5. They might have a limited team. But what you said, Marvel, about creating an assessment so that you could understand if it's a right fit both ways, so that the business owner can assess that potential person, and that person, potential employee, can assess if this is the right culture and company for them. I think it's important for us to just push a pin in it right there, especially for someone who's building their staffing and they're trying to figure out what that looks like for them. What steps would you suggest in creating sort of an assessment tool? Is there preset assessments that you would recommend, or is there a process that either one of you would give a small business owner as they're evaluating their capacity to build their team and to hire new members?
So that's a loaded question. I guess what I would say to you is, the first thing is, every question that you're going to bring up today goes back to something LaTanya said, and that's culture, in my opinion. I often say, it is not my saying, but I often say it and repeat it, and that is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Many people focus on strategy. Where am I going? Where am I going to take the business? Is that important? Absolutely. But if you don't have the right culture, it's all for naught. So I would say, in step one, is decide what type of culture that you want, because everything starts from there. The type of culture you want, the mix of talent that you want, has a lot to do with the culture. Like, is it going to be this entrepreneurial culture where, everybody challenges each other? Then you probably want more of a certain kind of person. It's not just the technical skill set, it's the person, the fit, to the point that now in diversity, it's not only diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's belonging or access, and whether or not somebody fits in, if you will, there. So I would say start with the culture as a business owner. What type of culture do you want? What type of work environment do you want? That's number one. In terms of assessment, yes, there are tools that you can buy, but I believe in good old fashioned, I can sit down and come up with situational leadership questions that I can ask people and just see how they respond to it. And it gives them sort of a window into what their day might be like, but it gives you a window into how they may respond. And this is something to supplement the actual interview if you're not comfortable or you feel you need more, is why I brought up doing this. Some may not need it, but some may need it. And you get situational leadership, you know how to ask questions. And some people have things now where you can go in and describe yourself, and they have all these words, and you can pick which words are you. That tells me a lot about you. That tells that potential employer a lot about you. And then if this happens, what would you do? And there are many options to choose from. You can do a Survey Monkey. You can come up with 10 questions yourself, right? On Survey Monkey, which is very inexpensive, and because I'm very mindful of being fiscally prudent when it comes to being a small business owner. Is that the target audience here? Dr. Stacy and Danielle? Okay, so I'm very cognizant of that. So, think about real situations, business owners, and how they may react. And I can give you options. It could be all of the above. And just see how you respond. It will tell me a lot about you. Does that help?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just to build upon that, when I worked at Pfizer in my past life, I had the opportunity to sit on interviews, and there was a standard questionnaire that was used to really gauge the core competencies. And I know you said culture is very important, but in regards to skill sets, and what registered when you spoke about situations is that the questions were put in the situation form, and they followed a format to in regards to how the applicants responded. Mm-hmm. Did they say what the situation is? What tasks did they actually do? What actions and what were the results? And so they wanted to hear that in regards to when people responded to the question. So you're right. There's different ways to do it, as you noted, as well as even as you shared how you asked the question, and to listen for the way that they respond, to see if they really have the skill sets to do what you need them to do.
Yeah, and I'm almost, I don't know how you feel about this, LaTanya, but I care as much about fit as I do about skill set and technical skill sets, because I want you to stay, and I want you to be a winner when you come on board, and I want you to contribute. And so you can have all the skill sets in the world, but if you're not the right fit, it won't succeed. And then we'll be right back recruiting again.
Mm-hmm. That is very true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, some other things, to what you all were just describing is, it really goes back to that behavioral-based interview.
Right.
And so, and really, business owners can really just take a simple step and just use it. And Daniel, you really started to allude to it, using the CAR approach, CAR, which is,
right.
Describe to me the challenge. What was the action or the steps that you took, and what was the results? When you ask specific questions, you can determine if someone looks good on paper and can deliver based on their current experience and past performance. It's the type of questions, and it's how they communicate, what their experience is and how they perform. You can tell if they're up to date, on their skill sets, on their experiences, what they know, who they're connected with, by them sharing it. But it depends on the questions that you ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go out and buy expensive, products and software to determine skill set, because anyone can really get around that. And if you really want to test skill sets, particularly like, around technology, or let's just say you're an agency, some type of like advertising agency or anything else, you can really put together short assignments and have people complete those assignments and give them back to you. Either they're going to complete them, the same day that you interview them, or if it's something that you think that they can complete in advance, and then you're going to evaluate it within like say a 24-hour or 48-hour turnaround period. And then you're going to look to see how they, what steps did they take to prepare? How did they follow through? What was the end result? You can do all of those things to really get and assess someone's skill set and their experience. Again, you don't need to go out and buy expensive tools and technology to do that.
Well, thank you for those answers. It's just generating so much, and I wanted to bring it up purposefully because a lot of small business owners don't take the time to focus on the human resources, on the human capital and talent. They're busy focusing on their service or their product. So they're missing that opportunity to develop culture and to identify who would be a good fit within that culture. So I want to say thank you to Joan, Thomas Wilson, and Diana Rose, and all of you that are tuning in. They love that culture eat strategy for breakfast, Marla. Everybody loves that.
It does. I've witnessed.
And Joan also said that LinkedIn is a good pulse check for networking to find out about the internal culture and determining whether the job will be a good fit for you, but ask more than one person, right? That's a good point. And that, the CAR approach, challenge, actions, results, these are the things that will help small business owners. And time pre-assessments are good litmus tests. Some people, I know a colleague of mine that has a whole series of onboarding before someone actually comes into her business, which I think is great. I learned it later on in business development. Hire slow and fire fast.
That's right. That's right.
Bingo.
Right, because you want to make sure that you're maximizing your time. No one has time to waste, and money is time for a business owner. So if you're going to invest, you need someone that's going to show up in the way you need them to show up in the culture that you're building. But we have so many other things that we want to get.
I'm sorry, Dr. Stacy, just one thing. When you said hire slow, that's biblically based. God says, lay hands on no man or woman swiftly.
Yes. Amen.
Sorry, I had to get that in.
Yes. That's your first lady hat. I love it. So Danielle, I know that we wanted to get into a few more just real-time issues when it comes to employees now that we're transitioning to the foundation. And I hope you all are taking notes. I hope you all are sharing this with other small business owners, because if you get the right person that fits your culture, that's actually helping your bottom line, because they're going to work in the best interest of everybody succeeding. And that way you can expand your business and work on your business and not just in your business. But over to you, Danielle.
So our next question, as Stacy said, this is a more practical question, is, well, everything is practical, but during COVID-19, what type of safety measures should business owners be taking for their employees and their customers? And LaTanya, we'll start with you again.
Okay. I was just waiting to see who you wanted to start first. Yes. First, I want to say that this is an important topic. It's simple and as frustrating as the safety measures around COVID can be. It is important that small businesses understand, and businesses of all sizes really understand, that claims are high against employers for around COVID. There are a lot of claims coming in, against employers for safety measures. And so, and there's legislation, that is being put forth to help, to mitigate and to protect small businesses, from COVID claims, because that's an impact on your businesses. So if you take time to take steps to ensure that the safety of your employees is as providing PPE. PPE most time has to be provided by the employers, but if an employer is partnered, particularly a small business, I know that, I'm partnered and a member of the Manhattan Chamber, for example. The Manhattan Chamber, supports small businesses, and they help to provide PPE like masks. So providing PPE, masks, as well as different types of separators, in the office. You see them everywhere now as you go into different types of retail stores. Staggering work schedules, so to ensure the safety, of your employees, and bringing people, if you want people to work in the office and not everyone can work remotely, making sure that schedules are staggered, so you don't have an office full of people, especially if you don't really have the space for that. Allowing employees to work remotely where they can, putting those types of flexibilities in place is helpful. Taking temperature checks, of course, and just talking to employees and keeping them abreast as to the guidelines. So, continuing to stay abreast of the CDC guidelines and following your local city and state guidelines, and implementing those policies and procedures. You're not going to have all of the answers, so it's important that you have a partner. You partner with an attorney, and if you don't have, an attorney that you can go to, leverage your local chambers, because the chambers have attorneys, particularly employment attorneys on hand, and attorneys who really specialize, and who are focused around COVID, who can help you support and give you the guidance that you need. There's different legal lines throughout New York City. If you don't know, New York City is a very, very employee-friendly state. So it is important that you stay on top of the laws and legislations, and that you consult constantly with an employment attorney when you don't have the answer. But if you take the small steps now, the simple steps now, and show good faith efforts, and communicate with your employees, that's going to go a long way.
Awesome.
If I could I'll just piggyback a little bit on what you said. I think one of the things you can do is just think of yourself. Are there things that concern you? Are there, what would make you feel more comfortable in going in the workplace? So as a small business owner, I would say, if an employee has to come into the office and cannot do that work remotely, which saves you on rent, by the way, and paying utilities and other things if they're working from home, just a side note benefit. But if they do have to come in, and LaTanya, she's basically outlined the whole thing, which is great. She's right. I want them to feel comfortable. You want them to feel comfortable, because they're not going to be productive if they're worried about, oh my God, am I safe? So what kind of things can you as an owner demonstrate to make them feel hopefully a little more comfortable? Like, number one, you can do temperature checks every morning of everybody when they walk in the door. It's the consistency is key. It's make sure you're doing it with everyone. Mm-hmm. So when they first come in, you can do that. You certainly should have policies and procedures in place that speak to social distancing. That's really, really important. You can require masks if you require it of everyone. So just think about the kinds of things that would make a person feel more comfortable, because you don't want anxiety. You don't want them worried about, oh my goodness, what if that person here, because they're focused on that and not the work. And so it's to your advantage to make sure those things happen. And also, if you are in a building, you want to look at that ventilation system, and you want to ask, you're paying rent, so you want to ask that particular facility a bit about the ventilation system. And if you've been shut down, I've been reading a lot of articles about even things as simple as water. You got to make sure the pipes and everything is okay. But I would say the things that LaTanya's outlined clearly says it all. I tried to add a little bit to it, but social distancing in your policies, make your employee, you got the great employee now, he or she is a great fit. You want to keep them? That's one of the things. Make them feel comfortable. And if they can do that work from home, remotely, do it. There's so many other things that you can do in terms of technology for collaboration. If I hear anybody saying in the back of their mind, but I want them to collaborate. You can there's so many tools, and perhaps we'll get to that. We could talk about from a technology standpoint, but save on your rent, save on the utilities, let them work from home, but make them feel comfortable, and talk to the employees and say to them, are there other things that I could do that would make you feel more comfortable?
And you touched on something as we build on that, because you said everybody needs to wear a mask if that's your policy, like being really clear that it's equitable across the board. So how should business owners update their policies and procedures to reflect this new COVID environment that we're living in, family leave, sick leave, et cetera? What would you suggest is the next step in how they revise what they might currently have so it is consistent, to your point, Marvela?
The first thing in terms of updating policies and procedures, the government has put out something called the Family First Coronavirus Act, and in it there are many things. And so I would suggest to small business owners that you might want to Google Family First Coronavirus Act, and you'll see many things in it that are required in terms of to be in compliance with the government, quite frankly. And so, for example, it says that if someone has been, say, in a state like Texas, and they're coming back to New York, and they are required by federal or state or local law to quarantine for 14 days, then this Family First Coronavirus Act says that can be sick leave. Now, there are some things that you can do from home. So, but what the act says is that if you cannot do the work or the or telework from home, then it is considered that. So I would say take that resource out, read it thoroughly, and then that gives you an update. Because another thing it says that if you are a caretaker of someone who either has the virus or your child's school is closed and you're the primary person, they can take leave. So go in and take a look at the Family First Coronavirus Act. It has everything you need to see as it relates to sick and family leave in terms of updates. Now, some things are, case by case basis and you have to look at it, but that to me is the resource guide and tool that I would use.
The Family First Coronavirus Act.
Just like there's a CARES Act, there's a Family First Coronavirus Act as it relates to sick leave and family medical leave.
And Marvella, you brought up also a great point when you talked about that all employees should be mandated to wear a mask.
Oh.
But as you know, that there are health conditions that someone could say, I have a health condition that gives me permission not to wear the mask.
Right.
And so that also needs to be documented in a situation like that, of how you document those who tell you that they cannot wear a mask.
I agree. Yeah, it should be documented, and they should be isolated in an area, quite frankly, where others feel comfortable, because you are concerned about all employees. You're concerned about that person, and you're concerned about the other employees as well.
Right.
Because they could be, let's be frank, they could be asymptomatic.
Okay, but you also have to have the documentation too.
Correct. I would make sure, yes, from a doctor.
And things like that.
I would agree, from a doctor. Although I'm sure you all know, it's been said on the news, a lot of the airlines now are saying, sorry, then you can't fly. Have you seen that? It's recent. It's recent, but a few of them are now becoming stricter because many people were presenting these old notes. But now some of them are saying sorry. Not all of them, but some of them. Or because the virus has continued to spread, they're sort of tightening up. And that's the airlines I fly. I don't fly the other ones.
Look,
I'm going to be frank.
I'm with you. Amen to that.
Not interested. Nope.
Absolutely. So when we talk about these updates and the policies, what type of communication strategies should business owners put in place? Like you both mentioned it. LaTanya, you mentioned it. Marvel, you mentioned it. Using technology. What should be, is there a norm that business owners, is it weekly, daily? How should they figure out this communication? Because both of you talked about the fact that folks need to hear something. So how often do they need to hear it? Will it cause fatigue? People are talking about getting on these Zoom calls. I love the commercial with Progressive.
Yes, that's funny.
Folks feel like they're working more being in COVID than they were going into the office, because the lines are so blurred between end of day, start of day, weekends. So what sort of communication strategy, as you're building this culture, I think we can build on that conversation for small business owners so they can figure out what their rhythm should be in communicating to their employees.
So would you like me to start?
Yeah.
You can start.
So there really is a norm, but communication should never stop. because the times are constantly changing. And so it's important that if you have communication, that you need to make sure that it's sufficient, that you increase it as needed. And so you need to leverage your intranet, do weekly, monthly, quarterly town halls, do Zoom meetings. If you have staff in the office, communicate. You can communicate in person. Just make sure you're just being social distance. But it's important to communicate. Send emails out. You can send an email out to your staff, and send and share updates. It's important that business owners be transparent. They share business updates, what's going on in the world, because let's just be frank, besides COVID as a pandemic, we also have, racial injustice as a pandemic. These things affect the workplace. They come into the workplace. So you have employees who went from, all of us who went from having a normal lifestyle, work style, to facing a pandemic as it relates to COVID, now facing another pandemic as it relates to racial injustice. So you have both of these things now competing with each other and employers. And, they have to address them both, because you need to be cognizant that these things affect your employees. So you have to speak on them, and you have to allow your employees a safe space where they can share information and ask questions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Marvela?
I think, yes, to exactly everything. What a fabulous colleague Miss LaTanya is. just to build a little bit on that, I think that the communication is the same as it was before COVID. It has to be an integrated type communication strategy, meaning that if someone reports into me or into one of you, you should be having at least a weekly check-in with them anyway. Right. And I think there are a couple of things now that you might add. Perhaps in the past, it was going through their goals and where they are. And perhaps if you're a really good leader, talking a bit about career development and sort of where they were. But I think now you have to add some other things into it. There are some people, when you get behind that closed door, that feels isolated. And so in terms of a wellness check, you might want to check in and say how you're feeling. There are some who are feeling overwhelmed because they have work, but they're also now the caretaker or giver. And so they're feeling overwhelmed. And then there's some people, I'm fine in the house, like hallelujah. But some people are going nuts because they're not able to go out in the sunshine. And so doing this sort of wellness check, and again, safe spaces, LaTanya has said, where you can say to people, how are you doing? That should be part of that one-on-one. How are you doing? What are the challenges that you are facing now that weren't before? And whether that be about, as she said, systemic racism, or about the pandemic, or some other unintended consequence that has come up as a result of this pandemic. But give people safe space to ask that question. And number two, be honest with people. First of all, with just a little bit of work, most of us can find out what's going on anyway. There's so many resources and tools that are available. So be honest. If the business is doing very, very well, say it. If the business isn't, and here are the areas that keep you up at night, you share that with your employee. By the way, first of all, they'll appreciate it. Number two, from a retention standpoint, they'll think, wow, she or he thinks a lot of me. And they may come up with a great idea that you hadn't thought about. A new place to tap into. I guess I'm getting into revenue streams now, but you get my point. So tell them what's going on. And then I also think that as a business owner, make sure you have your own little informal council, 2 or 3 people that you talk to who are going to tell you like it tis, like it really tis. Okay? Not what you want to hear, not what soothes your aching ears, but what is true and what is real and what you should think about, and then talk to them. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in building a communication strategy, it is critically important as an owner that you tap into multiple sources as a check-in for yourself, and then check in with your employees, engage them, and let it be sort of it's sort of it's a round circle. So everybody feels not only that you're honest, but last, authentic. I think it's important to be authentic and say, you know what? Tell them what you're feeling. You know, you're not Superman or Superwoman. And that doesn't get you brownie points, by the way, so with them. So tell them, because sometimes just knowing that you're not alone is so important. But in that integrated strategy, I would say you should have one-on-ones. You should also have team type meetings. And if you're zoomed out because you have too much Zoom, there's Google. You can do Google Hangout, for example. So there are many ways. You can pick up the phone. You can do FaceTime. I mean, so there are many ways, but engage people. The main thing is to engage and check in and just say, how you doing? It doesn't have to be an hour call. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 10. It can be an hour. But it's the fact that they know you care. It's called recognition. And this is not new. This is something that we should always have been doing.
Right.
So, Marvella, I just want to build upon what you said, because all those things are really important. And it ties into what you said and LaTanya said about culture and being authentic, right? That you should have that culture that you and your employees is a sense of camaraderie and family, because now more than ever you need to have that, like we're all in this together. But Mecca brought up a good point. Mecca said that a lot of people are experiencing anxiety right now. And so with that said, it's really important that the business owner recognizes what their capacity is and they check in, right? But as Mecca just said, mental health and wellness is critically important.
Yes.
What type of resources do you also provide to know when you have to provide greater resources to your employees? I mean, that's real talk. God forbid if they sound like they're suicidal. God forbid if they sound like they've been drinking or something, or, you know, whatever is. We need to think about how what is that point where we are in tune and we know that we need to provide other type of resources outside of our capacity.
Yeah. Who are you directing that to?
Oh, well, I'll start with LaTanya and then Marvella, you can jump in. So you've been
Sure. So most companies have employee assistance programs. Now, small businesses are not generally going to have that. However, you can have that because it's important that you at least put together a list of resources, and most of these resources are free, where they offer 1-800 numbers, text. They offer text features as well as counselors, where you can provide to your employees that they can reach out to, mental health professionals, for assistance. But the important thing is to have the conversation. Again, going back to what Marvella said, when you're doing wellness check-ins, when you're doing one-on-ones, whether it's a one-on-one, a group town hall with all of your staff, it's important that mental health is on the agenda, and that you let employees know that it is a difficult time. They may be experiencing anxiety, but there is help available, and that they should come to them. But here's some additional resources that they can use and leverage and reach out to. But at any time, all business owners need to have an open door policy, so their employees can reach out to them and they feel, again, it's a safe space where they won't be judged. And then also, encourage employees to be a resource and, a peer guide for their other employees. We are each other's keeper. And if you build that into your culture, then not only is the CEO and the business owner the keeper, but it also engages employees to be the keeper of their coworker. Mm-hmm. So, maybe they don't need to call a therapist, but maybe they need to contact someone else that they believe may be experiencing something similar, and they can reach out to them, talk it through, and get some guidance. But it's important that business owners be aware that during this pandemic, many times, as an owner, we may have the resources that are available and set up, and we may think that our employees have these resources that are set up, like, for example, dedicated spaces at home. Employees may not have those luxuries. They may be in tight, closed, smaller spaces. They may be at home with taking care of elderly parents. in addition to the dog, and in addition to the child, to small children. And now they are also faced with homeschooling. And these things mostly fall on women. These things mostly fall on women. And so women are unfortunately, bearing the brunt of this COVID pandemic, with all of the responsibilities of being a full-time working professional, a mom, someone who's taking care of parents, and then now having to homeschool their children. So it's a lot going on. And that's not to say that men are not in those same predicaments as well, but a lot of times, again, it falls on the women. So it's important as a business owner that, again, you have a conversation, you offer the resources, you make it constantly to check in with your employees, and you say, hey, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? Do you need support? Do you need assistance? If you don't want to share openly, feel free to reach out to me privately or reach out to your colleagues for additional support. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. And I would say, just to add a little bit to what LaTanya said, with the employee assistance program that most corporations have, one of the things I found attractive about it is you just provide it. You don't know if they called or not. And I think as a small business owner, we can do the same thing, especially if a lot of you on this call are from New York City. We have Thrive. There has been millions of dollars invested in Thrive. And so one of the things I think would be great as a tool is to just, perhaps when you're having a team meeting, and even in one-on-one, say, I don't know if you or a member of your family or someone that you are in close contact with may need something. Because remember, all of these things can be distractions from them being productive. If a family member or friend or someone else, may not be them, by the way, but you can say, but I put this list together and I want you to share it with whomever you think may need it. And on it, I would absolutely have New York City Thrive. It's 24/7. I would have the hotline for suicide. I would have the homework assistance free number with this new math or whatever kind of math they're using these days. I don't even know anymore if you can call it new math. There's a new name for it, or whatever it is. There are a lot of these. I was on a call recently where so many resources were given out. Some had to do with religion for those who want it, but different types of religion. So just have, if you will, it's almost like a list of tools, and say, here's some things that are available. And it may be for them, but it might not. It may be for a family member. It may be for a friend, maybe for a spouse, right? Maybe for a significant other. But I would absolutely make it available and bring that up. Because what you want to demonstrate, I think, as a leader is that you care. And just by saying these resources are available, not just for you, but for others that you know. And don't forget Thrive. It's free. It's New York City, and there's a lot of resources, whether it's mental, whether it's substance abuse, because unfortunately, mental illness, as we all know, it still has the stigma attached to it. Unlike diabetes or high blood pressure, it's not viewed that way, and that's unfortunate. It really is.
And I just have to say, Marvella, for me, I had this revelation with Black Lives Matter. That we as Black people, we are so accustomed with dealing with trauma and stress that we know that there is this mental health stigma in our community. And I think it's because we built such a resilience to a level of stress that we don't know when we have crossed that threshold where we need help. That's a good point. Because it's just so built into us with everything that we've had to deal with from slavery down, that we have built this almost immune system to it, right?
Yes, and many of us have been told, just deal with it. Just right?
Yeah. But with that said, we do have to know ourselves. Mecca said that everybody deals with situations differently, and that's so true. And we do have to understand what our threshold is as individuals and when we need to ask for help.
Absolutely. And what I always say, you ask for help, not because you're weak. You ask for help because you want to remain strong. And I think both LaTanya and Marvel have said two things that I hope small businesses listen to. You might not be a Fortune 100, but you can create your own employee assistance. It's all just compiling. That could be somebody's job to compile. That can be an intern's job to compile resources, all the free resources like Thrive NYC, the hotlines for parents, especially the parents who are having epic fails on homeschooling. My sister said, I flunked the test. Okay, it's too much. And I'm just so grateful that I don't have babies anymore. My baby just turned 17 today. So I'm very
Happy birthday.
that I'm not at that. I don't know what I'll be pulling each hair out one at a time. You got to know your ministry. That's it. It's not fair, and it's okay to say you need help. So today's show was really impactful. So many of you are commenting, you're sharing that this kind of content is important. The foundation of your business is as good as you as the leader, but the capital, the human capital that you have working with you, the culture you create, the environment, so that everyone can succeed and thrive together. That's really the goal. So we had two phenomenal experts that will share how you can contact with them, because I've been in contact with them. They have so much rich information. You know, Marvela, although she's only 23, has over 25 years of experience in this industry. And Latanya has been just a dear friend, moving from corporate to owning a business. Like, they have the skills. They've been in this industry. Small businesses reach out, will allow them to share their contact information. Joan, thank you so much for being in. It's another good girlfriend of mine. She's been in human resources for over 25 years. She said, this is amazing. I'm so glad that you're bringing this out for small businesses, because just your size doesn't interrupt your opportunity to operate as a Fortune 100 and to build a foundation from the ground up. Is giving you real-time issues with real-time solutions so that you can position yourself post-COVID-19. Businesses are going to thrive and some businesses won't. And you know what the difference is? Taking action, tuning into shows like this, getting the resources from the experts so you can make the right decisions and prepare for what's to come tomorrow. So thank you both for being here. I'm going to let you share your contact information, and then Danielle's going to close us out for today's show. This has been great and exciting. And, you know, I'm just thinking about all these different things. And somebody, here's your blessing. You could be the MWBE that creates employee assistance programs for small businesses. Bam! Give me my cut when you go ahead and produce that. You tell us your contact information, and then Latanya, you're next. So Marvela, how can they stay in contact with you?
You could go to my website, www.mjalla, hallgroup.com. You can also send me an email at it's mjallahall@gmail.com. I try to make it real easy. It's my name. So MJOLLA Hall group at Lord, I'm forgetting. Let me start over. www.mjallahallgroup.com or mjallahall@gmail.com.
All right.
That dollar looks like Hoya if you speak Spanish, but and thank you for having me. I want to thank you, Stacy, for inviting me, and it's such a pleasure to meet you, Danielle, as well as you, Latanya. I hope that we will stay in contact.
Absolutely.
And I hope everyone has a great day. And if I might say, if you don't mind, everybody listening, I want you to stay blessed, but I want you to be a blessing. If you could perhaps commit to tell one person that wasn't on this call something that you think might bless them, that would make my day. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. That's why I love you. And Latanya, let's get yours, and I'm going to put it up as well. Your website?
Sure. So my website is www.atwork.Manhattan. You can reach us directly at our office at 212-871-1221. And you can reach me directly at lpouncey@atwork.com. You can also follow us on social media at Atwork Personnel Manhattan on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as Instagram.
Awesome. Awesome. So Danielle, bring us on home.
so I just want to say thank you to both of our guests, Latanya and Marvela. We so appreciate all the wealth of information that you provided. I want to say, especially to Marvela, we appreciate that you came on, because we know that you are not feeling well, but you would never know it. You showed up like the professional that you are. And I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you so much. So little do people know you have already been a blessing. So when you said that, I just want to say, please pay it forward because you made sure that you showed up for folks today. And I need to appreciate that. And I just want to say that we will continue to provide you a ton of resources. This is something that Stacy and I, as well as Nicole, that we're doing it almost like a form of ministry. We are business owners as well. We understand everything that you're going through. And we started our very first webinar, we talked about resources and that you could be standing knee deep in water and dying of thirst. There are a ton of resources out there. We're just one of them. But our goal is to continue to provide you real-time solutions for the real-time issues that you're going through. And we just ask that you show up. We know that an hour of your time, especially as a business owner, time is money, but we continue to provide you great information and hope that you feel it is well worth your time. So until next week, make it happen, be productive, and we're looking forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
Thank you, ladies.